present first. Members of the Harvard Corporations and the Board of Overseers, members of faculty, proud parents, and all above graduates. The first thing I would like to say is thank you. Not only has Harvard given me the external dream, but the weeks of fear and nerves I have endured. And the thought of giving this comments address have made me lose weight. A win-win situation. Now all I have to do is take a deep breath, squint at the red banners, and convince myself that I am the world's largest Gryffindor reunion. Delivering a comments address is a great responsibility, or so I thought, until I cast my mind back to my own graduation. The commencement speaker was distinguished British philosopher Baroness Mary Warnock. Reflecting on her speech, it's helped me enormously in writing this one, because it turns out that I can't remember a single word she said. This liberating discovery enabled me to proceed without any fear that I might inadvertently influence you, and abandon promising careers in business, the law, or politics for the great daily lives of becoming a great wizard. You see, if all you remember in years come in gay wizard, I become ahead of Baron Mary Warnock. Achievable goals, the first step to self-improvement. Actually, I have worked my mind and heart for what I ought to say to you. I have asked myself what I wish I had known at my own graduation. And one important lessons I learned in the 21st century is that have inspired between the days. I've come up with two answers. On this wonderful day, when we are to celebrate your academic success, I have decided to talk to you about the benefits of failure. And you stand on the threshold of what is sometimes called, I want to extol the crucial importance of imagination. These may seem quick and choice, but bear with me. Looking back at the 21 years old that I was, it's a slight comfortable for 42 years old that she has become. Half my lifetime ago, I was striking and uneasy between the ambitions I have for myself and what those closest to me expected of me. I was convinced that the only thing I want to do ever was to write novels. However, my parents, both of whom came from and neither of whom have to college, took the view that my overactive imaginations were unamusing, that would never pay a mortgage or secure a pension. I know that you Irish strike with the force of cartoon and vote now. So they hoped that I would take a vocational degree, and I wanted to study English literature and commerce a rich stop satisfy nobody. And I wanted to study modern languages. Hardly had my parents' car rounded the corner at the end, and I did German scuttle off the classic corridor. I cannot remember telling my parents that I was studying classics. They might well have found for me the first time on graduation day. Of all the subjects on this planet, I think they would have been hard put to name one less useful than Greek when it came to securing the keys and executive bathroom. I would like to make it clear, and in parentheses, that I do not blame my parents for there is an expiry date on blaming your parents for stealing. The moment you are old enough to take the wheel, responsibility lies with you. What is more, I cannot criticize my parents for hoping that I would never experience poverty. They have been poor themselves, and I have seen being poor, and I quite agree with them. That it is not an ennobling experience. Poverty entails fear, stress, and sometimes depression. It means 1,000 pretty humiliations and hardship. Climbing out of poverty by your own effort, that is indeed something, but poverty itself is romanticized only by fools. What I fear most for myself at your age was poverty, but failure. At your age, in spite of a distinct lack of motivation at university, where I had spent far too long in the coffee bar writing stories and far too little time at lectures, I had a knack for passing examinations, and that for years have been the measure of success in my life, and that of my peers. I am not dull enough to suppose that because gifted and well educated you have never known hardships or heartbreak. Talent and intelligence never yet include anyone against the price of fate. And I do not for a moment suppose that everyone here has enjoyed the existence of untroubled and contentment. However, the fact that you are graduating from Harvard suggests that you are not very well acquainted with failure. You might be driven by a fear of failure quite as much as a desire for success. Indeed, your conceptions of failure might not be too far from the average person's idea of success. So how have you already flown? Ultimately, we all have to decide ourselves what constitutes failure. But the world is quite eager to give you a set of criteria if you let it. So I think it fair to say that by any conventional measure, a mere 7 years after my graduation day, I have failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage has imploded, and I was jobless, a lone parent, and it's possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. The fears that my parents had had for me, and that I had had for myself, had both to come to pass. By every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that failure is fun. That period of my life was a dark one, and I had no idea what there was going to, what the press has seen represents as kind of fairy tale resolution. I had no idea how far the tunnel extended, and for a long time, any light at the end of it was rather than reality. So why I do talk about the benefits of failure? Simply because failure means a stripping away of essential. I stopped pretending myself that I was anything other than what I was. I began to direct all my energies into finishing the only word that mattered to me. Had I really succeeded at anything else, I might never have found the determination to succeed in the one arena I believe truly belong. I was set free, because my greatest fear has been realized, and I was still alive, and I still had a daughter whom I adored, and I had an old typewriter and a big idea. And so rock bottom became a solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. You might never fail on the scale I did, but some failure in life is inevitable. It is impossible to live without failing at something. Unless you live sarcastically, then you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. Failure gave me an inner security that I have never attained the passing examinations. Failure taught me that I could have learned no other way. I discovered that I had a strong will, and more discipline than I had suspected. I also found out that I had friends whose value was truly above the price of rupees. The knowledge I emerged richer and stronger from setback means that you are ever after secure in your ability to survive. You will never truly know yourself or the strength of your relationship until both have been tested by adversity. Such knowledge is a true gift. For all that it is painfully wrong, it has never worth that any qualification I ever earned. So given a time turner, I would tell my 21 years old that personal happiness lies in knowing that life a checklist of acquisitions or achievements. Your qualifications, your CV, are not your life. I thought you will meet and people of my age and older who confuse the two. Life is difficult and complicated, and beyond anyone's total control. And the humility to know that it will enable you to survive is vital too. Now you might think that I chose the importance of imagination because of the part it played in rebuilding my life, but that's not wholly so. That I personally would defend the value of bedtime stories to my last gaps. I have learned I value imagination such as my broader sense. Imagination is not only the uniquely human capacity to envision that which is not, and therefore the fount of all inventions and innovation. In its arguably most transformative and revelatory capacity, it is the power that enables us to empathize with whose experience we have never shared. One of the greatest formative aspects of my life precedes Harry Potter, that if informed much I subsequently wrote those books. Its revelations came in the form of one of my earliest day jobs that I was sloping off to write story. I paid the rent in my early 20s by working at the African Research Department at Amnesty International's headquarters in London. There in my little and I read hastily scribble smoke out of totalitarian regimes by men and women who were risking to inform the outside world of what was happening. I saw photographs of those who had disappeared without trace, sent to amnesty by their disparate families and friends. I read the testimony of fortune and saw pictures of their injuries. I opened handwritten eyewitness accounts of summary trial executions of kidnappings and rapes. Many of my co-workers were ex-political people who had been displaced from their homes or fled into exile because they had determined to speak against the government. Visitors to our office included those who had come to give information or to try to find out what had happened to those who had left behind. I shall never forget the African torture victim, a young man no older than I was at the time, who had become mentally after he had endured his homeland. He trembled controlly. He spoke into a video camera about the brutality inflicted upon him. He was a foot taller than I was and seemed as fragile as a child. I was given the job of restoring back to the underground station of the world, and this man whose life has been shattered by cruelty took my hand with exquisite courtesy and wished me future happiness. And as long as I live, I shall remember walking along the empty corridor and suddenly hearing from behind a closed door a scream of pain and horror such as I have never heard since. The door opened and a researcher poked down her head and told me to run and make a hot drink for a young man sitting with her. She had just had to give him the news that in retaliation for his own outspokenness against his country, his man has been executed. Every day of my working week in my early 20s, I was reminded how incredibly fortunate I was. I lived in a country with a democracy where legal representations and public trial were the rights of everybody. Every day I saw more evidence about the evils humankind will inflict on their fellow to gain or maintain power. I began to behold nightmares, literal nightmares about some of the things I saw, heard, and read. And yet I also learned more about human goodness and Amnesty International than I had ever known before. A nasty mobile with thousands of people who have never been imprisoned for there to act on behalf of those who have. The power of human empathy, leading to collective action, saves lives and frees prisoners. Ordinary people, whose personal well-being and security are assured, join together in huge number to save people they do not know and will never know. Much more participation in that process was one of the most humbling and inspiring experiences in my life. Unlike any other creatures on the planet, humans can learn and understand without having experienced. They can think themselves into other people's places. Of course, this is a power, like my brand of infliction, that is morally neutral. One might use such an ability to manipulate or control just as much as understand or sympathize. And many prefer not to exercise their imaginations at all. They choose to remain comfortably within the bounds of their own experience, never troubling to wonder how it would feel to have been born older than. They can refuse to hear screams or repeat inside cages. They can close their minds and hearts to any suffering that does not touch them personally. They can refuse to know. I might be tempted to envy people who can live that way, except that I do not think they have any fewer nightmares than I do. Choosing to live in narrow spaces leads to a form of mental that brings it on terrors. I think the willful and imaginative will see more monsters. They are often more afraid. What is even more? Those who choose not to empathize enable real monsters, for without ever committing an act of outright, they can lure it through our empathy. One of the many things I learned at the end of that classic corridor, which I turned written by the Rick Arthur. What we achieve inwardly will change outer reality. This is an astonishing statement, and yet proven 1,000 times every day of our lives. It expresses, in part, our inescapable connections with the outside world, the fact that we touch other people's lives simply by existing. But how much more are you, Harvard graduates of 2008, likely to touch other people's lives? Your intelligence, your capacity for hard work, the educations you have earned and received give you a unique status and unique responsibilities. Even your nationality sets you apart. The great majority of you belong to the world's only remaining superpower. The way you vote, the way you live, the way you protest. The pressure you bring to bear on your governments has an impact way beyond your borders. That is your privilege and your burden. If you choose to use your status and influence to raise your voice on behalf of those who have no voice, if you choose to identify not only with the powerful but with the powerless, if you retain the ability to imagine yourself into the lives of those who do not have your advantages, then it will not only your proud families who celebrate your existence, but thousands and millions of people whose realities you have helped change. We do not need magic to change the world. We carry on the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better. I am nearly finished. I have one last hope for you, which is something that I already had at 21. The friends with whom I sat on graduation day have been my friends for life. They are my children's godparents, the people whom I have been able to turn in times of trouble, people who have been kind enough to sue me when I took their names for dead Esthers. At our graduations, we were bound by enormous affections, by our shared experience of a time that could never come again, and of course, the knowledge that we held certain photographic evidence that would be exceptionally valuable. If any of us ran for Prime Minister, so today, I wish you nothing better than similar friendships. And tomorrow, I hope that even if you remember not a single word of mine, you remember those of Seneca and not of those in romance I met. When I fled down the classics corridor and retreat from career ladders in search of ancient wisdom. It is a tale, so it's life. Not how long is it, not how good is it, but it's matter. I wish you all very good lives. Thank you very much.